everybody, you're in luck. It's time for your favorite podcast, the Ultimate Job Search and Career Podcast with yours truly, Bill, the company's expert. And today we have a very special episode for you. We're going to be talking about ghosting. If you've ever been ghosted by a recruiter, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. We're going to talk about how ghosting is unprofessional and harmful. We're going to talk about what's actually going on the other end when the recruiter suddenly stops responding to your messages and drops off the face of the planet. We're going to talk about what to do about it. Should you throw yourself off a bridge? Should you throw the recruiter off a bridge? And would that make you feel better? We're going to cover all of that. We're also going to take a comment from a viewer / listener who was awesome enough to send in a comment. And usually I take questions and answer questions, but today we're going to take a comment. I'm going to react to the comment. So won't that be fun? But before that, just some introductory stuff. I'm wondering if you guys like the thumbnail that I chose for this episode of this podcast. You see, I had done a thumbnail a few episodes ago where it was a picture of me with a bunch of black lines behind me. And I thought it was cool, but then I looked at it a few days later and it just looked like me as a big spider in a web. So I applied some filters to it and I got the thumbnail that you're all probably looking at right now, where it just looks like an ink blot test. That's right, an ink blot test. So you're here with Dr. Bill to talk about the job search experience and the psychological ramifications thereof. So we're going to get into that later in the video where we talk about the job search experience in response to a comment. Okay, so let's start off. Ghosting. Everybody loves dealing with recruiters, right? I'm sure a lot of people would rather put out a campfire with their face than deal with recruiters. And one of the reasons for that is this very topic, ghosting. Hopefully everybody knows what ghosting is. This is when you are having communication with a recruiter back and forth, and they might communicate with you and say something like, okay, I'll call you tomorrow, or the interview is set for next week. I'll give you the details on Friday, something like this. And then that's the last thing you hear from them. They no longer respond to your messages. They no longer respond to phone calls. They no longer return your voicemails. They're gone. That's ghosting. Everybody's favorite thing. And this is actually so common that everybody's talking about it, and everybody has been talking about it for the last couple of years because apparently it's the new normal. So if this has happened to you in your job search, first of all, I got great news for you. You are not alone. This is happening to everybody. Everybody is experiencing this. Now, let's get into this. I did a video about ghosting a while ago on my main channel, The Company's Expert. I also have spoken about it on my secondary channel, The Company's Expert 2, where I was responding to news articles and news items and things like this. This is, as I say, quite a prevalent topic. And I'm coming at this from two perspectives. On the one hand, I hear a lot of job seekers that complain about this. And some of them are quite emotionally distraught about it. And you got that on one side. And on the other side, I've taught HR in universities. I've dealt with recruiters. I've taught recruiters on recruiting. And so I understand a little bit of what's happening on the other side. I've also hired HR companies and recruiting companies to do job searches and things on my behalf. So I'm going to give you sort of the other side of it too. Now, first of all, if you're a candidate and you've experienced a recruiter ghosting you, okay, first of all, you have my deepest sympathy and my empathy because it's unforgivable behavior. It's completely unprofessional. It's rude. And these people don't know how to communicate professionally. That's their problem. And really, in the vast majority of cases where people get ghosted, that's the simple explanation. You know, there's no other way of putting it. There's no mitigating circumstances. It simply boils down to people being unprofessional. And if this has happened to you, you can console yourself to a degree by the fact that you're getting a taste of that organization's culture. And it might be a lucky escape. I mean, that's not gonna heal the the feelings of frustration and confusion when this happens. But in a small measure, it might help to somewhat heal it a little bit, because you might have had a lucky escape. If this is how they treat people and they think it's okay to treat people this way, you might have had a lucky escape. That's the bottom line. I'm going to say this again. There's no way around it. It's rude. It's unprofessional. And it's a sign of an unprofessional person. Now, getting the flip side of this, okay, the flip side, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, and that is that recruiters, they have to deal with an insane amount of communication. That's not an excuse, but that's a sort of earmark of their job. And in addition to that, they occasionally have to deliver bad news. In fact, they have to deliver bad news to people more than, I'd say, almost any other type of job. You're constantly telling people, nope, sorry, you didn't get the interview, you didn't get the job. This is as far as we're going with this process, and you run the risk of getting a lot of ire and a lot of frustration channeled your way. Okay, that's one of the earmarks also of being a recruiter. I mean, it's just the nature of the job. If you are recruiting for a position and you have 100 candidates, basically it's going to be a no to 99 of them and a yes to one. So most of what your communication is going to be, if you did it properly, would be to deliver bad news. Now, okay, having said that, there are professional ways and unprofessional ways of delivering bad news. And unfortunately, there's a hell of a lot of recruiters out there that have no absolute clue how to deliver bad news properly. And that's evident, and this is unfortunate because a lot of candidates, how can I put this? A lot of candidates, they are more literal in their communication. If you work in certain fields, like you're in sales and things like this, and somebody says, I'll get back to you, that means no. That's a euphemism for no dice. We're done, right? However, most people don't realize this. Most people take you at face value, and what you're saying literally is what they understand. And so if you say, I'll get back to you, and then you don't, or you're even more slippery about it, you say, I'll get back to you tomorrow, or something like this, and then you never do. That's not understood, nor is it intuitive for the vast majority of people. That's the reality. And a lot of recruiters delude themselves into thinking, well, they should know that means no. No, they don't. They find out the hard way by dealing with people like you. And what recruiters need to do here is learn how to be professional, learn how to communicate properly, bite the bullet. And if you're in the profession of delivering bad news to most people, you need to get good at delivering bad news and say, like, I'm very sorry, unfortunately, I can't, do this, rather than I won't, or I'm not going to. Sorry, it's a no, unfortunately. Or you do the smart thing and you say at the very beginning of the process words to the effect of, we will communicate with you if you've been chosen to move on to the next round, and we will do so by this date. That way you avoid having to explicitly deliver a no, but it's very clear to the receiver what's actually going on. So, I mean, there's ways of doing this professionally. Unfortunately, most recruiters are not professional. And this is coming from me being on both sides of this. And I've seen it firsthand. I've seen the effects of this, and it's ridiculous. So if this has happened to you, you are not alone. You are not at fault. Okay, this is a standard practice. Apparently, this is the way we're heading. This is becoming the new normal, unfortunately. It's a real step back, in my opinion, but that's where we're going. So be aware of it. Okay, now that you know this, don't read more into it than what it is. It's a combination of something being unavoidable and somebody avoiding conflict by dealing with it. Okay, that's all it is. And it's a shame. It most likely means you didn't get the job. But what you should do then is move on. Always focus on the next thing, okay? And don't pin your hopes on any one opportunity, because the reality of job search is that the odds are stacked against you no matter what you're doing, okay? But it's a numbers game. If you have a 10% chance of getting any job you apply for, all that's saying is that all things being equal, most of the time, you'll have to apply for 10 jobs before you get a bite. But if you apply for 50 jobs, you probably will get a couple of bites. That's all it means. So if you want so many callbacks, you just multiply it by by the factor, the multiple factor, and that's how many opportunities you have to apply for. It's just that simple. It's a numbers game. Okay. Now, job search is about serendipity. Hopefully everybody knows what serendipity is. It means, things just have to work out. It's a matter of luck, good luck, okay? You could be the most qualified candidate in the world, but you will still get rejected, and you'll probably get rejected for idiotic reasons. People will judge you on absolutely ridiculous criteria. They'll judge you way prematurely on the simplest criteria. There's just no way of avoiding it. That's just the name of this game, unfortunately. HR is a very inexact science, and the people that work in it are very bad at their job. Now, I'm going to explain that. HR is very imprecise. We've known this for a very long time. There is so much room for opportunity in HR that it's a real opportunity for companies or people to come in and change the way that people are hired. They'd be able to. There's so much opportunity there because we're so bad at it right now. We know that job interviews don't work. This has been well known, well studied for a very long time, several decades. People know this. Unfortunately, we don't really have a practical alternative, at least the way a lot of larger organizations think. We don't really have a practical alternative to it. So unfortunately, the only thing that we're left with is this idiotic process where you get judged by a recruiter, and you get judged by a recruiter who can't even deal with you professionally most of the time. Okay. Now, if you contrast the way recruiters deal with most candidates to the way executive recruiters deal with executives, you will see the difference. Okay. Executives do not get ghosted. Okay. If you want proof that ghosting is unprofessional, see if they do that to their high-paying clients, for high-paying jobs. Where if you snub a candidate and create negative goodwill, that could have serious consequences down the road. You could have serious consequences immediately, actually. And if you look into it, those of you who have used executive recruiters, like actual executive recruiters, not every second recruiter who says they're an executive recruiter, very few recruiters are, but actual executive recruiters for an executive type job, an executive management job, they don't do that. Right? It's only mid-level and lower level candidates that they treat that way. So there's the proof right there. Now, I get a ton of questions on a regular basis from candidates that ask, I haven't heard anything back for X many days. Is that bad? Are they ghosting me? And I would say, well, a rule of thumb I would say is 5 days. If you haven't heard anything in 5 days, like you've asked a question or they said they would do something and they never got back to you and they're 5 days overdue. Unfortunately, just playing the odds here, I would say that's basically a no. There are exceptions, but that's probably a no. Okay. I've told the story before of many, many years ago when I was up for a mid-level manager job. And, I was dealing with a recruiter for that position and I was ghosted. And I thought, well, that's the end of it. And something that a lot of people say is, well, if you're ghosted by the recruiter, you should try calling somebody else at the organization. Try and contact somebody else. Try and contact another recruiter from the same outfit, or try to try to contact the recruiter's boss, because you never know what's going on, and another point of contact might be useful. And I don't know, I think that doesn't work most of the time. However, I was recruited. I was starting to tell a story there. I was recruited in the past. I dealt with a recruiter, and they ghosted me. And I contacted the recruiter's boss after not hearing anything for a few days. And the recruiter's boss said, "Oh, it's actually good that you contacted me, because the recruiter has actually left the company. So I'm glad that you contacted me. Let's pick up the process. Let's get you in here for an interview." Okay, so there are exceptions to this, but unless you can easily contact somebody else at the organization, I don't know. I'm kind of advising you don't. I mean, you can. You could say, well, what have I got to lose? Well, what you've got to lose for a lot of people is getting more rejection, right? A job search, and we're going to get to this in a bit, a job search is also a game that involves keeping your spirits up, right? You're not just doing the logical things that you should do that could pay off. You're also doing things that are going to keep you in the game for the long term. You're not going to burn out. You're not going to go insane. You're not going to jump off a bridge. I mean, you got to take care of your mental health, and that matters too, So for that reason, I would say as a general rule, if you haven't heard anything from a recruiter 5 days beyond when you were expecting it, I would say just move on, If you want to contact someone else at the organization, if you can easily, go for it. But as a general rule, unless it's a super important position that you're hoping for, I would say don't bother. Okay, you're already getting a taste of how they handle people. Okay, how they deal with somebody professionally, and it's not going well. Okay, there is something that I call soft ghosting also. Soft ghosting is when they still talk to you, but they just don't give you any information. And an example of that would be if you're pursuing an opportunity with a recruiter, and they're very upbeat, and they're getting back to you very promptly, and the process seems to be moving quickly, and they brought you in for an interview, and maybe they bring you in for another interview, and then it's looking really good, and all of a sudden they say things like, "Oh, I'm sorry, the job is on hold," right? That's a classic sort of kiss off that means, "I'm sorry, we're not moving forward with you," but they don't want to actually say that, so they'll make up an excuse. You will never really get honesty when it comes to rejection. Okay, that's just the name of the game. There are powerful reasons why. People are not going to tell you why you're rejected. It's frustrating as hell. A lot of people want to know. It's like, well, what did I do that was wrong? Obviously, you're doing this for self-improvement, so next time you can fix it, right? But they're not going to tell you. Half of the reason is because they're revealing their hand. It's like playing poker and showing somebody else your cards. This is what we judge you on, and you failed that test, or something. And they don't want that publicly known, or else people will, the cat will be out of the bag, and people will wise up to what their techniques are. Okay, they don't want that. The other reason why is it's a conversation that doesn't really end well. If someone is honest with you and says, "Well, we didn't hire you because of this," a lot of times a candidate will contest that, and you'll get into a bit of an argument. No, we just don't think you're good enough. And then the person takes offense, or whatever, right? And these conversations are stupid and complicated, and they don't end well for anybody. So they avoid all that by just lying right to your face and making up some excuse and hoping that you'll go away. That's what's actually going on there. So if that happens to you, don't worry about it, okay? Don't take it personally. These people are idiots. These people don't know how to deal with people professionally. And, this is the end result, So now that you know this, okay, now that you know the nature of the people you're dealing with, in most cases, just accept it for what it is. Say, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's on hold. Sure. I know what that means. And move on. move on to the job you're going to get. Okay, move on to something that's going to work. Okay, it's not worth your time and your contempt and your frustration and your energy dwelling on this stuff and these people. It really isn't a lot of times. You know, it's an unfortunate situation for recruiters, but a lot of recruiters, they totally exacerbate the problem by being jerks and being unprofessional and being rude. And, you know, they're not worth your time. They really aren't. They have rejected, I've talked about this before. They've rejected some of the best people in history. You know, spotting talent is something that humans are not very good at. And there's been some extraordinarily embarrassing examples of that throughout history. They've rejected all kinds of geniuses, all kinds of superstars, all kinds of people that went on to generate billions of dollars of wealth, you know, on the basis that, oh, you're just not good enough. You know, it's ridiculous, right? So don't worry about it. Yeah, I don't know how much more there really is to this. That's the bottom line. If you have been ghosted, listen, you're not alone. You have done nothing wrong, and there's nothing you could do about it. Everybody gets ghosted. Everybody gets rejected. You are just the same as everybody else. You are just as talented as anybody else. And don't let it faze you. Instead, focus on the next thing. Okay? I know me telling you this won't instantly make you feel better if this has just happened, but just know this, okay? And put your effort into the next opportunity, okay? That's just how it goes, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. Thank you for the people that were wondering about that. I got a few questions about that, and I have gotten a lot of questions in the past. It's something that a lot of people, it's on the forefront of their mind because it's happened to them. This is very, very real. Now, we are going to take a comment here. One of my awesome viewers / listeners sent in a comment. And this is from someone called DNL. I don't know if that's Daniel, like it's like a sort of the street way of writing Daniel. You know what I'm saying? Dinl. And DNL says, "Hi. By this comment, I wanted to express my gratitude and say thank you for your advices." Well, my pleasure, Dinl. It helped me. I was looking for a new job and I finally got one after 6 months, 117 resumes sent, and around 10 interviews done. It was a very difficult task to me because most of the people that I met were not good at hiring. Their attitude, their not relevant questions have made along the way frustration grow. Okay, so it's very frustrating. I am happy to put this process behind me. Once again, thank you and keep up the good work. You're absolutely welcome, DNL. It's really nice to get positive feedback from people. I like hearing this kind of stuff. And, I try and tell people a little bit of what's going on and what might be a better answer. But, the credit is entirely yours. You know, you've done a fantastic job and I'm glad it worked out. And for everybody who's listening to this, who hasn't quite got to that place yet, don't you worry, it will come. It's just a matter of time. You just got to sort of keep on grinding. And, it's a numbers game. The more you put out there, the more chance you have of getting a return. And it's not just a reactive process. It's a predictive process. I talk to people about how to get informational interviews. If you want to sit down with the CEOs of companies in your hometown, which I have done many times, hundreds of CEOs, that's how I built my consulting business. You throw messages out there. And if you know that there's, in my case, it was something like a 30% connection rate and then a 20% response rate, something like that. So you take the number, you multiply it by 0.3, and then you multiply it by 0.2, and that's the amount of interviews you get. Then you can do the flip side of that math, and then you know exactly for every interview you want, if you want this many interviews, you got to send out this many messages to this many people. It's just that simple. It's a predictive process. And the same thing is true of job search. Okay, if you want X many offers, That means you have to do X many interviews, which means you have to do X many applications, and so on, right? So it's that funnel, it's a variation of the marketing funnel, essentially. Okay, if you've heard of that. If you haven't, Google marketing funnel. That's exactly what the job search process is. You're marketing yourself, right? It's like trying to get a customer for yourself, right? I'm trying to sell me as an employee, and I'm trying to find a buyer, right? It's exactly the same process. So, but I wanted to pick out something that DNL said here, okay? On their way, on their journey to find a job, okay? Most people, I'm quoting here, most people that I met were not good at hiring. Yes, that's going to be a typical experience. That's what you're going to find. So if that's what you're experiencing, don't sweat it. You're normal, okay? You deal with a lot of unprofessional people that do things like ghost you, okay? And in particular, DNL says their attitude. Yeah, a lot of these people have a ridiculously silly attitude towards it. A lot of times, I think it's... I don't know what you call it. It's like a really bad attitude. It's where, people just get drunk with power. You are the decider. You are a recruiter. You get to decide who gets hired. And having candidates sort of suck up to them on a daily basis, like, wanting their favor and not being able to express their frustration when the recruiter appears unprofessional or rude, that goes to some people's heads. And they lack any kind of self-awareness, and as a result, they act completely improperly, unprofessionally, and incompetently, and it doesn't get called out. Not by candidates anyway. So that's normal. If you're experiencing that, you're not alone. Okay, and it's frustrating, as DNL says, to constantly encounter that. Okay, and they are so happy that the process has ended, and that's typical also. Unfortunately, means that you won't come back and listen to my podcasts anymore. But if you're going through this, you are you're a victim to one of life's little ironies. Okay, it's almost like puberty. When you go through puberty, you start, you want to look your best, right? You're starting to pick up on, the opposite sex or, whatever persuasion you are, and then going through puberty, you look the worst you're going to look in your entire life. That's what job search is like. You want to go to interviews, you want to sell yourself, you want to be confident, you want to be able to sell yourself and display your strengths and talk about your triumphs and be very confident and be able to believe in yourself and all this kind of stuff. And at that moment in your professional career, you will never feel 2 inches tall like you do during a job search, dealing with condescending interviewers, dealing with organizations that give every external indication that, you don't matter at all to them. And they are not shy about sending that message, right? It's very unfortunate, but if you can get through this, and you will be able to get through it, you will come out on top, I guarantee. So, so thank you very much to DNL for sending in this comment. I'm glad that you are one of the many success stories here. I wish you nothing but the best. And for everybody who hasn't quite there yet, don't worry, that'll come. You just got to stick to your guns, and you've got to keep going, keep grinding. And if you're getting absolutely nowhere, if it's like extremely, how can I put this, uninspiring, okay, and disappointing, if it's really kind of being suspicious how you're not getting anywhere, that's usually an indication that you need to switch up your tactics, okay? There are many ways to get a job. Don't just do one, do several, okay? About a year ago, I did a series of podcasts, and each of the episodes was on a different vector, a different way of getting a job. Okay. And just off the top of my head from memory. The most obvious is applying for posted jobs. Another one is networking. Okay, there are several things you can do within networking. You can apply for jobs in person. That's a little bit hard after 2020, depending on your exact circumstances, but that's possible. There are things that are more advanced things like growth opportunities. There were things like informational interviews. Okay, there are many vectors to be able to get a job. So if you've just been doing kind of one thing for, I don't know, a couple of months, more than a couple of months, you might even, some people are doing stuff for like a year or more, and they're getting nowhere. That's usually a signal that you should investigate some of the other ways into organizations. Okay. So that's just food for thought. Okay. There are many different ways. Check out some of the others, and it goes up, and you could even consider things like entrepreneurship. You go into business for yourself. Now, that's not for everybody, but that is an option. And if that's something that you've found appealing and have had sort of a dream to do, that is certainly possible. Okay. I'm actually starting up a podcast on my other channel in a couple of days. That's going to be, I think the exact title is the Business Growth and Entrepreneurship Podcast. But I'm an entrepreneur, and I've advised many startup founders and led several startups to success, and done a lot of work in that area. So, it's also one of my favorite topics. So I'm going to be starting up a podcast where I talk about that, if that's something you're interested in. Okay. Not everybody goes that route, and you don't have to. It's just if you're particularly intrigued by doing that. There's never been a better time than now to start up your own company. So if this is what you're thinking, thanks to social networking, it's never been easier to contact large amounts of people and draw their attention to your offering, whatever that is. Okay, your offering, whether it's a product or a service. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Special thanks to DNL for sharing his or her success story with me and with you guys. And thanks to everybody who was asking me about ghosting. I wish you guys nothing but the best. Check out both my YouTube channels, The Company's Expert and The Company's Expert 2. Subscribe to both of those. If you would like to support me, I have a Patreon, and I also have members on my main YouTube channel where you get access to members-only videos. I make 2 videos on my main channel a week, and I also make 1 members-only video a week, so you get access to all those too, if that's if you're into that kind of thing. And just as a reminder, I have 2 courses. One is called Get Hired, and that tells you absolutely everything you need to know about how to get a job, including some of these other vectors, these other ways of getting a job other than applying for posted jobs. It covers that, but it also covers a lot of networking and hidden job type stuff too. So if that's any interest to you, check out the link in the description box for this video. And also, this is still kind of newsworthy. I've just come out with my second course. It's called the $100 MBA. For $100, I walk you through a Master's of Business Administration. I have an MBA myself. I've been the CEO of a small company, and I not only guide you through the material, but I also give you some insights into the material, and also talk about stuff from an entrepreneurial perspective too, if that's your bag. If you are thinking of starting up your own company or investigating it further, I've always maintained that if you want to be in business, it certainly helps to know business, right? It's like anything else. Okay. If you want to be a ballet dancer, it certainly helps to have learned how to dance ballet, right? That is self-evident, but for some reason in business, a lot of people seem to think that, oh yeah, I don't know anything about business, but I'm going to succeed in business, and it's totally going to work. And then they're surprised when it doesn't. So learn your craft, whatever it is. And you don't have to necessarily buy my course. There's many resources out there, but I feel that my course is the advice that I would have liked to have when I was about 22 years old and trying to start my first entrepreneurial type ventures. We've saved certainly a lot of time and costly mistakes. So check that out. Also, there's a link to that in the description box of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you nothing but the best. Take care. Have a great week, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Thank you very much.